Hi, this is a video where I got the ideas in the last video. So I want to make a separate video just about shows and things with family themes and how they focus on the holidays back in the good times in the 80s and 90s. Okay. So what came to mind was when the show Doogie Howser MD was on the air, and it lasted for only 4 years. So it was relatively short, but it was worth it because, um, of course, Neil Patrick Harris plays Doogie, and he's a 16-year-old um, surgeon doctor. Okay, he passed, if you believe the storyline, he passed school. He went through school when he was like 10, and then he became a doctor at 14. So he's supposed to be in his third year as a doctor. So, yeah, okay. So, because he's 16, he has to have like a family, he has to have somewhere to live, you know? So he does, and he has a best friend who kind of keeps him grounded and reminds him that he's just a kid. Because more than once he says, "Hey, Dewey, I know you're smart, but remember, you're just a kid. It's okay to have fun like a teenager, you know?" Um, but I kind of relate to him in a way because he was really smart, smarter than he was supposed to be, and he never really quite fit in anywhere. He fit in with the doctors because he was that level of intelligence, but then he didn't fit in because of his maturity level or because they didn't think it was appropriate for an adult to be hanging out and like friends with a teenager. So he always had the the pull of how old am I supposed to act, you know? Um, but his father always grounded him, and his mother too, because they were like, "You're just a kid. We love you. No matter what you do, we love you." And also, and this is not um, usual for most sitcoms, but he always kept a blog back in the day, literally a computer diary where he would. I remember the computer. I remember everything. The computer was one of those big things with like the monitor was like this huge, and then the keyboard, and he would type in it every time at the end. So I just thought it was cool because, like I said, I was 11 at the time of the end of the show, and I was like, wow, you can do that. So ever since the age of 10 or 11, I've been keeping a journal, you know. And yes, I did start a blog when you could do that. So I've been doing it for a while too. So, um, okay, on to other family things. Family Matters was huge. Of course, it's in the name, Family Matters. So, you know, um, they focus on the kids and they focus on the parents sometimes. But see, you had an interesting dynamic here because the father was a cop. So the father already had a way of thinking of right and wrong and follow the rules. But then the mother was like, down to earth, homemaker, would listen to her kids. She was smart, but she didn't have what you would consider street smarts, apparently. Now, I'm just going based off of the character, so please don't say that I think anyway, and then they had the grandmother. So you basically have three generations in one house. You have the mother of Carl Winslow, the cop, Carl Winslow and his wife having their kids. So you have the mother in law who believes that it should run a certain way. Then you have the parents who think it should run a certain way. And then, of course, you have the kids who are teenagers or growing up into teenagers who have their own ideas. And somehow, throughout 9 seasons, they were able to be a cohesive unit. So, impressive. Okay, for holiday themes, I have to bring up Everybody Loves Raymond. And I know I talked about it before, but I'm going to focus on just the Christmas episodes here. Okay? They did it out for Christmas every year, and it was kind of funny because you're supposed to believe that Deborah was a working woman until she met Ray. Then she decided to give it up to raise kids. And Ray was the one who brought home the bacon, quote unquote, from being a sports writer to where he would go out on the road and interview sports teams. Okay? And then you have her ideas of what a modern woman should be, and his ideas of what a wife should be, and what his father would say what her duties are, but he would say just be a good. Well, there was one episode. It's really funny, because it's called, and yes, it doesn't have the Christmas theme, but I'm getting there. But it's a standalone. It can be a standalone called Marie's Meatballs. Okay, so I don't know if this applies to everybody, but I'm sure that your family or the family you married into, assuming you're married, has their own recipes, right? And you're supposed to pass them down through the generations and, whatever. Okay. But Marie has this recipe box that when she unalives, she's going to pass on. But Deborah, being a quote unquote good wife, wants to be able to cook meatballs that her husband loves. But here's the funny part. Marie sabotages her attempt at making the meatballs because she gives her the wrong ingredient. So therefore, Ray doesn't like it because it tastes different than what he's used to, right? So it's the whole, Marie wanted to be good for something until she unalived. And she thought that if she held on to recipes and cooked for him, she thought that was the only thing she was good for anymore. Now, of course, that's wrong, but that's what she thought. Okay, getting back to the holiday theme episodes. Okay, in the first season, there was one called The Ball. And the reason why it's called The Ball is because Ray apparently wanted a Mickey Mantle signed baseball. Well, his father tried to stand outside of the stadium and wait for him to walk out, but he never did. So Frank, trying to think he was being a good father, forged the signature, and Ray found out, and Ray was not pleased about it. So then your moral is, what's more important, the effort or the gift? Okay. Then there was another one where, let's see, most memorable. Oh, there was one where Deborah wanted a thoughtful gift from Ray because she thought that he put more thought into the gifts he got for his mother than her. So Ray came up, Amy and Robert came up with the idea of giving her something really important, really special. So then somebody came up with the idea. I think it was Robert. he should give her a first edition copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Apparently, she did her thesis on the author and all this other stuff. So Ray is in really good with Deborah because it's her favorite book and all this stuff, and she thinks that he remembered it. And then Robert, being Robert, kills the moon and says, I was the one who had the idea. And Amy, his girlfriend, future wife, but years down the line, said, okay, Robert, yeah, you had the idea, but what's the point of you telling people it was your idea? Why didn't you just let him enjoy the moment? And Robert says, because he's a glory hog. He's always been a glory hog. And Amy says, okay, but you understand you didn't have to do that, right? So there's another lesson in that. You may be right, but do you always have to point it out? You know? So yeah. Oh, my last Christmas episode that makes me laugh every time is one called Jazz Records. Okay. Frank is really old school. Okay. Frank. To describe Frank is a curmudgeon and doesn't really like a whole lot of people or a whole lot of things. So the one thing he liked is his jazz records. But however, years ago, decades ago, they were destroyed in a fire in the basement or where he kept the record player. But they were smudged against the like put against the heater, so they didn't have a chance. Okay? So for 30 something years, this man, I'm sorry about that. I have CP, I told you about that, and sometimes that happens. So, okay. He's talked about this records for years, decades. Finally, Ray says, I've had it. So he tries to rectify the situation, right? His solution is to give him the same quality records, but not records on CDs. Well, Frank is old school. He wants records. He wants to play them on the record player. So, Robert saves the day. Apparently, he and Amy had gone to old, like garage sales and places where you find old stuff. So they happened to find a couple of his favorite records. And the last scene is him, Frank, playing a record on the record player. And you can just see him kind of go back into remembering what it sounds like. And like it took him to another place. So that's why it's one of my favorites. And I probably like all the Christmas episodes, if I'm being honest, but I don't want to make this a forever video. So I just gave you the top 3. But I really do miss things that focus on the family element without trying to sucker you into, okay, here's the thing about family, enjoy it. So all right. Bye everybody.